Hello 11A, I hope that you're all well. So today I'm going to go back through some feedback for your descriptions. I have looked at all of your descriptions that you did for the mock assessment. Some people did get 4s. There was one person that did score 1-5, but generally it was around about 3, a general sort of median mark, because we're missing out definitely the sentence structure, but we're going to go through that in a little bit more detail now. I'm going to set you a little bit more about the expectations of the assessment itself, have a look at some vocabulary, etc. So if everyone can do the following for me, please get your mock assessments out for me. Obviously have a pen, red pen or a black pen. Also, I would like you to get your vocabulary sheets out for me, because we are going to look at the vocabulary for the assessment to make sure that you know most of the words for that assessment as well. So if you can get those things out for me before you continue this recording. Okay, so we're going to have a look at overview of the assessment event. We're going to review of marking sheet and expectations. So I'm going to go through how I've actually been marking your documents. Then we're going to have feedback on the mock assessments and a quick review of the vocabulary. So to start off with, I just want to make you aware that this is 20% of your mark, so 20%. So it's a huge difference if you get a strong mark or if you fail. So these are the instructions that you will be provided as well on the assessment day, but again, so that you're prepared for the assessment, you know what you're going to be walking into. Similarly to the mock assessment that I created for you, you're going to be doing a description, 1 of a process and 2 of a graph. So this is all related to Unit 4 in 008. So if I were you, I would go back through that unit by way of revision in order to prepare for the assessment we're having next week. As usual, no mobile phones, no translators, and no book. The first task, you're required to write approximately 225 words of a process. If you go a little bit over that, that's absolutely fine. So you're going to prove that you can use the technical language in that, using passive voice and ability to write complex sentences in clear paragraphs. And the next one, you're required to write approximately 150 word description of the graph. So I want to see that you can actually analyze this information. As with the mock test, you have 1 hour to complete the test. At the end of the test, you need to give your written description into the teacher, and the teacher will have to send that to me, okay? So you cannot take a photo of it. I don't want the phones anywhere near you. You need to, as soon as on the day of the assessment, make sure that your desks are ready and clean and you've got your pens and paper. Okay, so here's just some tips about what you're going to have to make sure that you include in order to get a strong mark. Include all of the steps. So make sure you don't forget one of the steps in the process. If you miss one of the steps, I'm going to have to mark you down in terms of content. Use the passive voice. And remember, when we talk about passive voice, we're trying to make the verb the most important thing, okay? That action that we were doing is the most important thing in that particular sentence. Make sure that you're using your appropriate conjunctions, and, but, or, and so. And subordinating conjunctions. So unless, provided, despite, though, since, before, as soon as, after, since, and so. Also relative pronouns, that, which, where, whose, and who. Make sure you organise your description into short paragraphs. I need to see an introduction, your body, which contains either the process or the analysis of the graph, or as well as a conclusion and your final comment. We'll talk about this in a little bit further detail. So this is for the graph. It says as well, include all the steps, use language which describes data and trends. Okay, so making sure that you're using language that describes the data and trends. We're going to have a look at that vocabulary in just a moment. Including comparison and contrast. So I want you to see how that you can compare the information in the graph and contrast the information in the graph. Organise your description into short paragraphs. Again, introduction, your body, and your conclusion with your final comment or your final analysis. Right, I want to just go through the marking sheet that I discussed with you, and I also put it into the WeChat group, our WeChat group, so you can actually see what I'm going to be marking you on. But this analyzes what it is, so you understand each of the aspects. I'm going to start with content. It includes appropriate main topics, ideas, substantiated by relevant supporting ideas. So I'm going to talk about going off topic in just a moment, but do make sure that the content reflects the information you've been provided. Someone in the mock description talked about COVID-19, and rather than talking about what the graph was showing, actually started explaining about wearing masks and keeping safe. That information wasn't actually in the graph, so that was going off topic, and unfortunately that would mean that that would be a fail. Content also means that you've got all of the information as well. Organisation, I want to see that you have actually planned, that your paragraphs, your introduction, conclusion, everything is nice and coherent. So everything follows the correct order, and I can clearly see all of the different elements of that description. Sentence structure, grammar, accuracy, punctuation, okay? Make sure the sentence makes sense. Is it a full sentence? A full sentence does include a verb as well as a subject. Vocabulary, I want to see that you're making use of the vocabulary that we've been talking about throughout Unit 4. And as I said, we'll go through that in a moment. Once I've gone through 1, 2, 3, 4 of these, and I've given you a mark from 0, which means that you have not displayed this at all, to 5, which means that you've done above and beyond outstanding performance, then I have a look at task achievement. So task achievement tells me, did the person understand what was required? Did the content explain sort of what we were doing for that particular task? Is it well organized? Is it well structured? Can I see that this person has actually made a lot of effort, and B, edited their work? Okay, so just some feedback on the mock assessment. So this is just about, most of you did the same thing. So we've got all the same problems. So as I said, please get your pen out and get a piece of paper. I'll leave you with this PPT as well. So I'll put it on our WeChat group so you can reflect on it. But it's a really good opportunity for you to have a look at your own mock assessment and see if any of these errors you actually committed. Introduction. So the introduction won't come directly from the information provided. You can use your general knowledge to introduce the audience to your topic or your graph or your process. So for me, if I was doing this mock assessment, I would have said cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR, is a useful skill for us all to know in case of drowning or heart emergency. So you see, I've just used one sentence and it's introduced us to the topic about the purpose, i.e. the skill that we need to know, implying I'll now tell you about the process. For a conclusion, equally, a conclusion briefly summarizes what you've discussed with a final comment. So for instance, for the mock assessment, I might have written CPR, a simple technique that could save lives. Make sure that you have clear paragraphs. Many of you, I can see that you may have written an introductory sentence, but then you didn't actually leave a space for that paragraph. And it's a really simple technique that you need to know for any of your academic writing, for any essays that you do at university, etc. So make sure your formatting is correct. Nice and easy. Introduction, leave an empty line. Body 1, leave an empty line. Body 2, leave an empty line. And conclusion, okay? Nice and simple. Just make sure that you leave that empty line. Timing. Some of you look like you ran out of time, especially on this second on the graph, or if you started the graph first and did the process second, and that's completely up to you. If you find writing processes a lot easier, but it's the second item, that doesn't matter. If you want to do question 2 before question 1, because you know that you're going to get that nice and easy, that's absolutely fine. Use your independent learning skills to make those decisions. So to make sure you don't run out of time, schedule what you will be doing. And I would suggest that you do this in any of your assessments. So you already know what is required of you in this assessment, so we can allocate the task. And here's an example of what I might have done. So I know that I've got 2 particular tasks. I'm going to start by reading and interpreting part 1. And I'm going to give myself 7 minutes on that. Okay, so I'm going to keep looking at the time, probably 5 minutes to do the reading and 2 minutes to have a bit of a think. Then I'm going to plan. So I'm going to quickly go, okay, I'm going to put this first and second and third and so on forth. So you only need 3 minutes, and we'll talk about planning a little bit in a moment. I know that I'm a bit of a slow writer and I need to really think about my sentence structure. And because of that, I'm going to give myself a big 15-minute block to actually write the first about the process. Then I'm going to move on to question 2. Again, reading, interpreting, planning, writing. Because you've got maybe the process, which is 225 words, and the graph is 150 words, you might decide that you want to use less time to write on the graph and more time to write on the process, okay? So you just need to work out the timing that is best for you. This is just an example. You'll notice at the bottom that I've given myself 10 minutes to complete the editing. Editing is so important. It can change your mark from 5 to 10%. So increase your mark from 5 to 10% just by fixing up little errors. One of you actually, I could see, forgot to do an introductory sentence, and so they actually wrote that introductory sentence sort of in the middle of the paragraph and did an arrow to indicate that it was for the top, and because of that their mark actually changed. So the plan, it's just to organize your ideas. Don't spend your time writing your description in the plan. You're just going to be writing your description twice. That's not the point of the plan. The plan is just keep it simple. Intro, I'm going to do this and this. Body 1, I'll do this. Body 2, and conclusion. Okay? So just so you can organize your thoughts in a nice, clear, well thought out order. So if I was going to do the mock assessment, my intro, CPR equals important / skill. So I'm going to make a sentence or 2 sentences out of that. Body 1, I'm going to talk about 911 and the correct position, because that's the first thing and the second thing you do. Body 2, I'm then going to talk about the breath and that body pump, chest pump thingy. And then in the conclusion, I'm going to say continue, wait for help. This could save lives. So now I've got, okay, I know what I'm going to write, and I just need to put these into nice, full, complex, well-established sentences. Okay, so just a quick thing on the structure. So topic sentence, indicate that the stages of harvesting, treating and grading tea will be explained. So this is from when you did the tea and milk paragraphs that I asked you to do previously. Okay, so here you're just going to topic sentences, just telling us what this process is going to be. The body, this is when we're describing the process or describing the information from the graph in 1 or 2 paragraphs. And finally, the conclusion. So you can explain what the result of the process would be or what your final interpretation of the graph is. So let's go into a little bit more detail about editing. As I said, I suggest at least 10 minutes, which is 5 minutes per description. Initially, you'll start with your sentence structure. I always recommend that you whisper to yourself, because often what you read is what you think you've written, not what you've actually written. So listen to it and does it make sense? And having just a quick whisper under your breath that no one can hear is absolutely fine. Is there a better way that you could express that idea? Is the order correct? And is it a full sentence? Grammar and spelling. Have you used a range of vocabulary, not just next or then? Have you used a passive voice, making the action or the verb the most important part of the sentence? And have you stayed on topic? Have you described this graph rather than going off and discussing your thoughts on it? This is a scientific document, not an opinion article. Okay, so we're just going to go through some vocab revision now. Please make sure that you've got your pens, your pencils, or even your books out. This is what will change your mark. Okay, if I can see that we're using these and you've referred to these and you've actually learnt this vocabulary, it's going to make a huge difference in your overall outcome. So we can see if it increases sharply, a sharp increase, or to increase sharply, a steady increase, a sustained increase, a progressive rise, or a small, a slight, or a marginal. To continue on, we look over a direction to rise, to increase, to boom, upward trends, or a downward trend to decline, to hover around or to stabilize. And the bottom, to fluctuate or a fluctuation. So these are higher level vocabulary, and I'll see that you have the ability to express yourself in terms of process as well as graph. Here we've got the ordering of events, and this in particular will be useful for your process. So begins with, starts next, after that, what the purpose is, place, where we use where, and method, by studying, by reviewing, by anticipating. Here is my recommendation for you to get a higher mark than what you may have achieved in your mock assessment. So review your mock assessment. How could you improve on it? Could you have structured it better? Was there enough content? Did you refer to statistics in the graph? The people that got the highest mark in terms of the graph are those that actually specifically gave statistics, including dates and numbers, and referred to them in comparison or in contrast to another country. And that was a very impressive, those people that did that. How is your sentence structure? Do you have clear paragraphs? Do we have an introduction and a conclusion? And is it legible? Legible means, can the teacher read it? Right, let's just quickly look at some assessment vocabulary. So these are the words that you really need to know. Now I've given them to you before the assessment. If you don't know these words and you don't know the words in the assessment, that is not the teacher's problem, that is your problem. You will not be told any vocabulary in the assessment. So I highly recommend that you complete all of this, or memorize it rather. So desalination is the process to take minerals from saline water, okay? So desalination, so you can see desalination, saline. Saline being salt. So it's basically taking salt from water. So it makes it so that we can drink it. A filter is a porous. Porous means like a holy, not a holy, but like a device with holes in it to remove particles from liquid and gas. So, yes. Reverse is to move backwards. Osmosis is molecules passing through a membrane. So membrane's kind of like, if you imagine a sponge, from less concentrated solution into a more solid one. A turbine is a machine for producing power where a wheel and fast-moving water, air, or steam goes through. So you think of like a water wheel, for instance. The water moves really quickly, the wheel goes around and it generates electricity. Generate is to produce or create. So to generate something is to produce something or to create something. Landfill, disposing waste by burying it. A power plant is an apparatus providing power for a machine or building. That's where we get all of our power from. And pH levels. So that's the acidity or alkalinity levels of a liquid. I'm sure that Mia Mayuri can explain these to you much better than I can, but it is really important that you know this information and you probably have an idea about what your process is going to be. If you don't understand, please ask. Is there anything that doesn't make sense? Please let me know. You can send me a chat in WeChat individually or in the group. All I want, guys, is just for you to actually succeed and get a really good mark. So I'm doing my best. That's why we had the, ideally we were going to have 2 mock assessments, but that's why we had the mock assessment this week, is it gives me extra work to do, which isn't all of that fun, but I really want you guys to succeed. So if you don't understand anything, if you want to improve, if you decide that you'd like to rewrite your mock assessment and send it to me, you're more than welcome to do any of those things. So the assessment, I'll just open up. So your assessment is actually going to be on Monday of next week. So Monday, the 27th of April, going through period 2 and period 3, writing a description of a process and a graph. Okay, so that's all I have for you for the moment. As I said, please send me a WeChat if there's anything I can do to help. If I don't know if you're struggling, if I don't know that you've got problems, I can't help you. All right, well, until we meet again, have a great weekend and I'll speak to you in the next class.